If you watch my YouTube channel or my Twitch channel, you'll know that I capture a lot of different devices and have them shown on video or on stream all the time. And having good capture devices is extremely helpful. So today we're going to go ahead and check out the Elgato 4K-S. Elgato sent this one over to me to check out. We're going to see how well it performs. I have a bunch of different capture cards right now, and I'm going to talk about what I like about this in comparison to them, what I don't like about it in comparison. We're going to talk about what use cases I'm probably going to be using this one for, and we will see how its latency is and how it performs overall. So without further ado, let's hop into the unboxing. So before we open it up, let's take a look at the box here. So the 4K-S is meant to be the successor of the HD60X at a cheaper price, being $20 less than the HD60X. And we'll go over the pricing a little bit later. But here we have next-gen console capture, 4K 60 capture, 120 frames per second pass-through, any system. It mentions PlayStation, Switch, and Xbox. On the side here, it mentions it's an external capture card. It uses USB 3, ultra-low latency, HDR10 support, which is important. We'll talk about that in a second. With the HDR tone mapping, it supports variable refresh rate, which is important for the more recent consoles, like the Switch 2, the PS5, and the Xbox Series. Analog audio input, and it works with a Stream Deck. Also mentions what's in the box. We have the capture card itself. We have a USB-C to USB-C cable, and then we have an HDMI cable. On the back, it mentions Pro Capture. This is a lot of marketing stuff, but then we get to see the inputs. So there's an audio line in, which is extremely handy depending on the way that you're going to be setting up your audio when doing capture. So having the audio in is just added flexibility. They mentioned that it works best with a Chat Link Pro. And then we have HDMI out, USB-C, and HDMI in. And there's a few specs, but we'll go over specs in a little bit more detail in a second. And then on the other side, it just mentions that the product is made out of repurposed plastic and the packaging is plastic free, which is always really nice to see. So let's go ahead and get this open. Well, that's unsatisfying. Come on. Come on, Elgato, you gotta give me a good rip here. All right, well, that did not go as planned. All right, so we slide out that insert there. And then we have this. We open that up. We have a paper sheet. That's nice. And then we have our card itself. So it's nice and small. I have pretty big hands, but overall, it's a small little package. Makes it easy if you want to take it with you, make it portable, which I really do like. We have that HDMI out, USB-C, and the HDMI in. And then on the other side, we have that 3.5mm in. We have the logo, and then we have a status light. And then inside, the HDMI cable that they give us is actually braided, so that's nice. And then we also have a braided USB-C to USB-C cable. Now, if you don't have a spare USB-C port on the computer that you're going to be doing for, you're going to need a USB-C to USB-A adapter that supports USB 3, so do keep that in mind. Now let's talk about those specs. Now both HDMI ports are HDMI 2.0, not HDMI 2.1, which is important to me, and we'll talk about that once I talk about the use case of this later. For the pass-through resolution, so this is whatever it's going to send to the display that you'd be using. It supports up to 4K 60, 1440p at 120, and 1080p at 240. And the capture resolutions, so these are the resolutions that it can actually capture for your OBS, your Elgato Studio, any of that kind of stuff. It supports 4K 60 for that, 1440p 60 frames per second, 1080p 120, 1080p 60, 720p at 60 frames per second, 567p, and 480p. The HDR10 and the VRR pass-through is available all the way up to the 4K 60 resolution, so that is great. And the HDR10 is only available on capture up to the 1080p 60. Now here's a really quick table that shows all of the frame rates and resolutions that are supported. And here is a table that shows the codec resolution and frame rate that can be captured per given connection using either USB 3.0 or using USB 2.0. Now I will have links where you can check out the Elgato 4K-S on Amazon for yourself. If you do end up using those links, they do support the channel and I really do appreciate it. So first off here, we're just comparing the latency between the actual display through the pass-through, and then we're using Elgato Studio, and it actually looks really, really good. You could probably play a game on this without too much of an issue. If you're playing something that's super reaction oriented, like a fighting game or a first person shooter, or maybe even a driving game, you may notice a little bit of a difference. But to the naked eye, it actually looks pretty good. And I tried playing around with it a little bit as well and just tried playing a game. And I didn't really notice any major lag, and I was able to play directly through the preview. Now, I also wanted to go ahead and test this through OBS because in the past I've had experiences where certain capture cards will perform with lower latency through their own software. But then when you use it through other things like OBS or Streamlabs or what have you, you would notice a little bit more of a latency. But here it seems to be, as long as you have your settings set up correctly, the latency looks good still. It looks almost exactly like it was within Elgato Studio, and I was able to play the game through this preview. I'm using a benchmark here just because it's a little bit easier for me to keep things consistent, but I did go ahead and play a little bit of Mortal Kombat through the preview, and I was able to play fine. So I've also gone ahead and tested it with some of my different devices. So I tested it with my Switch, I tested it with my ROG Ally, and I've tested it with my Steam Deck, and I've had zero issues. It's performed really, really well. The main thing to keep in mind is just make sure that you have your settings done correctly. And I've been able to do this no problem. I am currently playing this through the preview because don't have it connected to a display right now, so I don't even have a display out. And I'm having a perfectly fine time playing the game. There's no issues here, and I could play a game like this super easy through the preview and not have to worry about having a secondary display. Now that I've mentioned Elgato Studio a few times, let's go ahead and look at the actual software. Now this is their new software for their video capture cards. My old 4K Pro and a lot of the older capture cards use the 4K capture utility, which has been around for quite a long time. Studio is their new thing, and I can still use my 4K Pro. So if I do the drop down here, I can still go ahead and use my 4K Pro. If we go ahead and go to device info here, we can see our serial numbers, we can see our firmware, and the 4KS, I did have to update the firmware before doing all of this, so that was available and able to do right here. I can go ahead and pick up my 4K Pro if I want to. It's going to change the input. I don't have anything plugged into it currently, but it is going to be able to tell me the information and the driver version here. It's going to show updates for the software, and then here it's just going to be the color, theme, and language. For the recording, we can go ahead and set the maximum resolution. We can set a recording path, our file name, prefixes, the formatting, and whatnot. It's very easy to switch between devices. We just go up to the top here and we click our 4KS. And we're able to get our input. We can really quickly change the resolution as well. So if we want to, we can adjust the recording format. It'll bring that open for us immediately. This is currently showing what our input is. So it's telling us right here that it's doing 1440p at 60 frames per second, and it's throwing HDR currently right now. So that's good to know. And then it's telling us that it's also passing through the 1440p 60 frames per second with HDR. And then it's currently recording 1440p 60 SDR. As mentioned, the HDR is at a maximum of 1080p 60 capture. So if we go ahead and change this and we do 1080p, and then once we change that 1080p, now we're going to go ahead and go over here to the device settings. And if we want to do the HDMI color range, we can go ahead and have it so that it sets the tone mapping. So right now it's tone mapping. If I turn this off, you can see the HDR kind of dullness that happens if you are pushing HDR onto a display that doesn't have HDR. So if we turn that tone mapping back on, we'll see that it looks a little bit better. Now, EDID modes are something that can be important if you're running into issues. What the EDID modes do is it kind of tells the capture card how to behave, whether it's going to behave as its own display and send that information back to the device that's plugged into it, or if it's going to pass through the display information that it's plugged into, so the actual monitor or TV that you're using, or as the default, it is the merged. So if you have it set to the display, it's going to go ahead and use that TV's resolution and everything to figure out how it wants to go ahead and tell the actual origin device how to project. If you use internal, the Elgato is going to tell the device how everything's going to work. And then for the merged, it's automatically going to switch those settings between your device and the Elgato to whatever is going to be the best display. Now, I'm not sure why the 4Ks isn't allowing the recording format to be HDR. I even tried changing the Steam Deck to be 1080p 60 instead of the 1440p 60 to see if that allowed it to change over. It is supposed to support 1080p 60 capture with HDR, so I'm not sure why it's not allowing that. So adding the 4Ks into OBS, which is my preferred streaming and recording software, is extremely easy. We're just going to go ahead and right click, add video capture device. We're going to do 4Ks. We're going to go ahead and grab our 4Ks. And it is going to go to the device defaults in terms of the resolution and the frame rate. If we want to, though, we can go ahead and do custom. And I know that my Steam Deck is running at 2560 by 1440. And it is running currently at the 144 frames. We can set this to highest if we want to, or we can manually set it to the 144. And there we go. It's very easy to set up. Took me no time whatsoever. If I do want to change a bunch of settings, I do have the ability to do so, just like most others. And again, this is my preferred way of capturing and recording. So now I want to talk about use case. So I would not actually be using this as my main capture card because I currently use a display that is a 240 hertz 1440p display. And I won't be able to do my pass through to that display at the resolutions that I would like to. I'm currently actually using a 2 cable setup to do this. I have a 2 PC setup using a 2 cable setup. So I'm doing my display port directly to my display, and then I'm cloning that with HDMI and then sending that over to my capture card. And I am currently using the AverMedia GC573 as my capture card. I also have the Elgato 4K 60 Pro, the MK2, which is a little bit older. I've been having a lot better of a time in terms of stability with the AverMedia GC573, so that's why I'm using it. But in order for me to change that setup, I would ideally really love to do a setup where I'm just using a singular cable. So it's a singular cable from my gaming PC into the capture card on my streaming PC, and then that over to my display. I would need something that supports HDMI 2.1, as the 4Ks does not do that. But where this will come in really good handy and really good use is going to be for all of those additional devices that I do capture on a regular basis. And when I use a setup that is non-standard. So for example, I hurt my back recently and I've been streaming on Twitch from my couch, and I've been using my laptop, and I've actually been using the 4Ks as my capture card to capture my gaming PC. That I have a small form factor gaming PC, so I have that set up downstairs at my TV, and I'm using that, and then I'm passing that through here. I'm able to still use HDR on my TV. I'm able to do everything that I want to. I'm only playing at the 4K 60. I'm not doing anything crazy in terms of there. So I'm not playing any high refresh rates. So that works out really, really well. This is plugged into my laptop, and I've been having a really good time doing that. It's been working really, really well. So in situations like that, this is great. But I also recently covered the Live Gamer Ultra S. So between these two devices, which one do I think is better? And the devices both support really the same kind of specs. They are both standard HDMI 2.0. They both allow pass-through resolutions of 4K 60, 1440p, 120 and 1080p 240. However, their capture resolutions are also extremely similar, but it does seem like the Live Gamer Ultra S supports some more HDR resolutions. It does 1080p 240 and 1440p 30, which isn't specifically listed on Elgato's website, but they are using the same HDMI format, so I wouldn't be surprised if the 4KS also does support that same thing. The major thing though for the Live Gamer Ultra S is that it is cheaper. So the Elgato 4KS is currently in regular price $160. And the AverMedia Live Gamer Ultra S is regularly $140. So it's about a $20 difference, and $20 is a decent chunk of money for a lot of people. And if you do not need the additional audio input, because that's one physical thing that the 4KS has over the Live Gamer Ultra S, is that it does have that additional audio input jack on it, which is really nice, then the Ultra Gamer S may be the better choice for you. But what I will say is the 4KS, the Elgato Studio software is much more refined. It works a lot better. I've had a lot less bugginess other than that HDR situation with that than I have with the AverMedia setup. So in reality, between these two devices, it really is going to be up to you. Is that $20 super important and you don't need the additional audio input? Then maybe going with the AverMedia Live Gamer Ultra S is a better option for you. But if you want to be doing capture with Elgato software, you want some software that is a little bit easier to use, and you want to have that 3.5mm audio input, then the 4KS is the better solution. It's also going to depend on sale pricing. A lot of these devices go on sales quite a bit, and if the 4KS is on a great sale price, I would suggest it because it does have the additional feature of that audio port, and I do like the software a little bit better. So if they're priced around the same, the 4KS is a really good option there as well. It's really going to be dependent on when you decide to purchase. I do think though the 4KS is a great device if you're going to be capturing a lot of the consoles, especially. It's really good for that. It's good as a portable device. Like I said, this is going to be one that I'm going to keep in my laptop bag for whenever I need to go ahead and capture anything on the go. It's been really good for me. It's been great for my stream so far. I've been having a really good time with it, and overall performance has been great. I haven't experienced any kind of glitching or anything during my actual captures. The Elgato 4K software is beside the point, and the fact that it wasn't capturing HDR. I don't really plan to capture HDR anyway, so it's not that big of a deal for me. Overall, I've been pretty happy with it. I'm really curious what you guys think about the 4KS. Is this something you'd like to pick up? Have you been considering this? Between the Live Gamer Ultra, would you like me to do a little bit more of a comparison between the two? Let me know down in the comment section below. With all that said though, I really do hope you found this video helpful, and if not, at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you like, subscribed. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can leave those down in the comment section below, and I'll be happy to try to answer them as quickly as I can. Big thanks to my patrons, and big thanks to you for watching to the end of this video. If you do want to see any other videos where I go ahead and cover products like this, you can check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.